Shalom, shalom, shalom. This is the brother Quadar of GMS Gulf Coast. I'd like to start by giving all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High and His Son, Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rekah, Quadash. Double honors are given up to the apostle elders of Great Millstone, men who have labored and suffered in this truth for over 30 plus years, making their lives and their bodies a living sacrifice. I also like to give shalom to the hopeful elect, the 1/3 of the nation of Israel, as well as the various GMS camps, elders, heads, and last but not least, I'd like to send a shalom to any of you Akim, not named GMS, but walking one body, one spirit in Yahweh Shai, preaching and teaching 100% truth as it is taught to us all by the apostle elders of Great Millstone. To you all, shalom. I imagine the title of this video through the spirit. But first and foremost, I'd like to say, Abba, Ratazah, Lord willing, Father willing. Let's be edifying. It may be a little lengthy. Lord willing, it won't be too long, but I'm going to let a video play and bring out a couple, 2, 3 precepts through the Spirit. And hopefully it's edifying. Just touching base with current events, things that have happened here in the recent past that are playing out here in the present day as concerning the financial system of Babylon the Great, a.k.a. otherwise known as America. And not only that, all of her allies. That this banking system is all interconnected. It's not just the banking system here in the West. The West is connected to the East, the Middle East, so forth and so on. So, it's all one big beast, But I want to go into a little video on this subject because I personally like to say that the reason that the financial or the monetary system of the West is still up and floating is because the people, by and large, believe in the government. I'm going to say that again. I personally like to say that the floating of the up or the continuation of this fiat currency that's backed by nothing, this dead dollar that is backed by nothing, it survives because the people by and large believe in it and uphold it. Having said that, I'm gonna let this video play.
Fusion video. I'm going to start this video off with a quote. Henry Ford once said, "It is well enough that the people of the nation do not understand our banking and monetary system, for if they did, I believe there would be a revolution before tomorrow morning." I quote this because it encapsulates the fact that the contents of this video may be unsettling compared to the videos that I normally make. I still feel compelled to make this video because I've been exploring the financial world for the last 4 years and it's definitely given me a more complete view of the world. I want to share some of what I've come across with you guys. I'm also going to do a video about cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin in the future, and to understand why Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies may continue to rise, it's critical that you understand the contents of this video. I hope that you find this topic interesting and that it inspires you to do your own research afterwards. Now, with that said, let's begin.
Best head bob than anybody you know. I let the rest get calm, then rock the building with flow. I get the best head strong, stomp the ceiling to the floor.
So who controls all of our money? It's a simple question. We all know that you and I don't control it. Our employees don't control it. The companies that they work for don't control it. So who does? Where does it even come from in the first place? I'll give you a hint. Money does not come from the government. It's a seemingly obvious...
Okay, so that question was answered. You and I don't, and he went as far as the government doesn't. So there it is, Well, who controls and who creates the money? The government doesn't, and you as the everyday Jack and Joe citizen don't. Most definitely don't, So that question was answered. If you didn't hear it, let's hear it again, real quick.
this because it encapsulates the fact that the contents of this video may be unsettling compared to the videos that I normally make. I still feel compelled to make this video because I've been exploring the financial world for the last 4 years and it's definitely given me a more complete view of the world. I want to share some of what I've come across with you guys. I'm also going to do a video about cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin in the future, and to understand why Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies may continue to rise, it's critical that you understand the contents of this video. I hope that you find this topic interesting and that it inspires you to do your own research afterwards. Now, with that said, let's begin.
Best head bob than anybody you know. I let the rest get calm, then rock the building with flow. I get the best head strong, stomp the ceiling to the...
So who controls all of our money? It's a simple question. We all know that you and I don't control it. Our employees don't control it. The companies that they work for don't control it. So who does? Where does it even come from in the first place? I'll give you a hint. Money does not come from the government. It's a seemingly obvious question that's never asked or taught in schools for some reason. Unfortunately, most people's lives are basically dedicated to money. It's all people ever worry about or talk about. We go to school to learn basically how to go to university, to learn the skills to get a good job, so that we can trade hours of our lives, all for this thing called money. So why wouldn't you want to know where money comes from and who issues it? Today, in this very special video, you're about to find out the answer to the question of who controls all of our money. People today can tell something isn't quite right with our financial system, but they just can't put their finger on it. Some people think it's the failure of government, others think that it's the failure of capitalism itself. This video should clarify a few things. The year is 1694, and England had just suffered through 50 years of war. Exhausted, the English government needed loans to fund their political means. Brainchild of Scottish banker William Paterson, it was decided that a privately owned bank that could issue the money to the government out of thin air was to be the solution.
Privately owned bank. That means non-governmental employee, not the press secretary, not the president, not the congressman, senators, or House of Representatives, not the Treasury Secretary, not the judicial bank, the judicial portion of the government, the Supreme Court justices, none of them. Private citizens. Now think back, the World Economic Forum was just held a few weeks back, and there was no elected governmental officials there. Well, I won't go as far as to say that, but the majority of the people who were there at that World Economic Forum were, guess what? Private citizens. Private citizens. So, just like the man just said, the government needed to borrow some money, and they borrowed it from what? A private entity.
This was the very first modern central banking system in the world. Central banking is more influential than laws, governments, and politicians, but strangely not the focus of the general public. Fast forward to the early 20th century, and after 2 failed attempts, a group of bankers wanted to put a central bank in the United States of America. It was December of 1910, and Senator Nelson Aldrich ordered a private train car in New York with 6 others. The 6 were not to be spotted by any news reporters to avoid questions. Their destination? Jekyll Island off the coast of Georgia. The meeting went for 9 days, and from that, they created the Federal Reserve System. This is...
Private citizens created the Federal Reserve under the auspices of their partners in crime, the international bankers. There's a lot that he has not injected into this video, but for the most part, it's on par with how things came to be and how the private sector owns the banks. Are very, very wealthy men, as you're gonna find out in this video. These particular men right here, at this particular time, as far as the overall global wealth was concerned, they controlled about a quarter of it.
All documented and a matter of public record. Some of them went on to write about the meetings in their personal biographies. Here's a quote from Frank Vanderlip, president of the National City Bank of New York, February 9th, 1935, in the Saturday Evening Post.
I was as secretive, indeed as furtive as any conspirator. Discovery, we knew, simply must not happen, or else all our time and effort would be wasted. If it were to be exposed that our particular group had got together and written a banking bill, that bill would have no chance whatever of passage by Congress.
The 6 men that Nelson Aldrich brought together included the head of banks, branches of government, such as the Treasury, and some of the richest people on earth at the time. To give you an idea of how rich they were, in 1910, these 6 men represented a quarter of the world's worth. The bankers told the American public that the purpose of the system was to stabilize the economy and to stop the grip of the Wall Street banks over America. The problem was, the guys that wrote the bill were the very same people they said they'd stop. If they succeeded, it will give a small group of men the ability to create money from nothing and loan it to the American government with interest. So why was it done in secret? Because the American people didn't want a central bank. Back then, unlike today, people knew what central banks were and understood them very well. Everywhere a central bank went, there'll be wealth inequality, wild swings between economic booms and busts, and after each bust, those at the top of society mysteriously came out richer while everyone else got poorer. Europe was the running example of this at the time. The Federal Reserve was originally drafted as the Aldrich Bill, but when it came into Congress, they recognized Senator Aldrich's name and smelt a rat. The bankers needed better cover. They decided to send 2 millionaire friends to carry the bill to quell the suspicions of Congress and renamed it the Federal Reserve Act. Next, in a textbook lesson of deceit, the bankers set out to fool the American people through disinformation. In the newspapers of
Disinformation, the same thing that they hold you liable for. Now they use it as a ploying tool to pass legislation by way of lobbyists that they send to your government. Now pay attention to what he's about to say. They trashed the bill that they came up with. The private entity, the Federal Reserve, of the World's Bank, of these wealthy individuals who pass legislation, although they're not a part of your government, they're not elected government officials, employees, i.e. presidents, i.e. senators, House of Representatives, Supreme Court judges, so forth and so on. But yet and still, their agenda gets passed, and it gets passed by disinformation and tricking the American public. Check this out.
Day, the bankers screamed and protested against it. The bankers needed better cover. They decided to send 2 millionaire friends to carry the bill to quell the suspicions of Congress and renamed it the Federal Reserve Act. Next, in a textbook lesson of deceit, the bankers set out to fool the American people through disinformation. In the newspapers of the day, the bankers screamed and protested against the new Federal Reserve Bill. It would ruin the banks, they exclaimed. The average person read the protesting articles of the bankers and thought to themselves, if the bankers hate it, it must be good. And then they ended up unknowingly supporting a Trojan horse. The bank...
A classic Hegelian dialectic. Problem, reaction, solution.
Also fooled Congress by putting clauses in the bill that limited their power only to remove them once the bill was passed. A double head fake of the public and Congress was all it took. The bill was passed on December 23, 1913, while most of Congress was out on holiday. And with that, a small group had complete monopoly over the issuing and creation of American money.
Wind that up to today.
Today, the Federal Reserve is the most...
You wind that up to today's present day World Economic Forum, International Monetary Fund, World Bank. You see where it's going? All of these are not government officials or government employees, have not been elected to your government at the highest of level, nor at the state or local level. But in return, they are the ones who are loaning the money to the governments. I say that because the United States has just tipped a $31 trillion ceiling on their debt. And I asked the question, who does a country owe? Because, it's understandable that the everyday citizen owes bills, mortgage note, car note, taxes on your property, so forth and so on, escrow, all of the above. You understand what I'm saying? But who does a country owe? Your government, who do they owe? This is just getting into some details, digging up a little dirt or digging up a little information on how this money and your government is all tied in with the crash of the U.S. dollar that's about to happen. It's imminent. This is something that's imminent. It's not if it may happen. It's a matter of when or how soon.
Powerful entity in the United States, and they're not ashamed to admit it either. Here's former Fed Chairman Alan Greenspan.
What should be
1913, while most of Congress was out on holiday, and with that, a small group had complete monopoly over the issuing and creation of American money. Today, the Federal Reserve is the most powerful entity in the United States, and they're not ashamed to admit it either. Here's former Fed Chairman Alan Greenspan.
what should be the proper relationship between a chairman of the Fed and a president of the United States?
Well, first of all, the Federal Reserve is an independent agency, and that means basically that there is no other agency of government which can overrule actions that we take. What the relationships are don't frankly matter.
In addition to this, it seems that the Fed can't even be touched by investigating parties.
So I'm asking you if your agency has, in fact, according to Bloomberg, extended $9 trillion in credit, which, by the way, works out to $30,000 for every single man, woman, and child in this country. I'd like to know.
$9 trillion. That is the debt that China is in right now at this very moment. $9.2 trillion to be exact. And this was back in 2009 right here. So you had any children born around about that time, they were born into debt of over $30,000. And all they did was come in the world and cry.
If you're not responsible for investigating that, who is?
We have responsibility for the Federal Reserve's programs and operations, audits, to conduct audits and investigations in that area. In terms of who's responsible for investigating, would you mind repeating the question one more time?
Mr. Chairman, my time is up, but I have to tell you honestly, I am shocked to find out that nobody at the Federal Reserve, including the Inspector General, is keeping track of this.
So what does all of this have to do with me, you might be asking? I don't even live in the US. Well, 2 reasons. Number 1, the central banking model from the Bank of England and the United States has now been put in all countries, and even consolidated power in parts of Europe as the European Central Bank, or ECB. This unites separate countries under one economic policy. The only places in the world that don't have central banks are North Korea, Iran, and Cuba. In 2000, this list suspiciously included Afghanistan, Iraq, and Libya. And number 2, since the end of World War II, the US dollar has been the reserve currency of the world. This means that all central banks hold US dollars in their reserves. In other words, all other currencies are backed by the US dollar. This directly links your country to the Federal Reserve's monetary policy in America. More on this later. When the post-World War II monetary system, called the Bretton Woods system, was created, all US dollars were backed by and exchangeable for gold. A byproduct of this was that currencies used to be very stable in relation to each other.
Before that, all the countries, the exchange rates were fixed, and year after year you could predict what prices were going to be. You could start a business elsewhere, know if you could calculate profits. Business was much, much easier before floating exchange rates.
Unfortunately, in 1971, due to a falling US dollar, international capital flows into gold, and the funding of the...
Now, this is going to be very important. It's like very important what Nixon was about to say, because he said in 71 that the gold dollar standard was suspended temporarily. Now, I say that. Why is that important? Because the Bank of America has went into private citizens' bank accounts and retrieve money to put forth this debt, this national debt. And they say, and in retrospect, they said the same thing. We'll put it back. It's just a temporary fix. See where it's going?
Vietnam War, President Nixon took the US dollar off the gold standard.
I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets.
Now the dollar was floating and backed by nothing, and has been ever since. Okay, so let's think.
That's the point. It was temporarily suspended over 50 years ago and has not been back and has never come out of that status ever since. Now, fast forward to the present day, the dollar is worthless. Your faith in this system, your belief in your government is propping up this phony currency and giving them time to stretch out their contingency plan and the blame game of who's going to take the blame for the crashing of the dollar. When it's been them all along, going all the way back into the early 1900s. It's been your government being lobbied by very, very wealthy private individuals to secretly bring this to a halt, bring your monetary system to a halt, and bring prophecy about Revelations chapter 13 and bring in the MTOB. Yes, this is what this all is making its way to.
A little. If the US dollar is backed by nothing, but the world's reserves are backed by the US dollar, intrinsically, since 1971, doesn't this mean that all currencies are now backed by nothing tangible, only trust in the American government? Well, this is correct. Money backed by nothing is known as fiat currency. Fiat in Latin means let it be done. In other words, the government says it is money, so it is.
And that's all we need to know. Your faith in the government props up the proxy government. Anyway, that's all I wanted to play on that. I'm going to jump into a few scripts, a few precepts, and I'm going to close this out. I want to be edifying. Let me turn my light on because I can't see nothing, even with my eyes on. The first scripture I want to grab is, let's see, let's go to the book of Matthew real quick. 6. This is our Lord and Savior, Yahushua, speaking, because we see it's written in red. Now, mind you, if you are so-called Black, Latino, and Native American, you are of the tribe of the nation of Israel. You are the Lord's chosen people. And your trust should not be in anything or anyone but the Most High, Yahweh, in the name of His only begotten Son, Yahushua, point blank period. This is Matthew 6:19, and it reads, "Lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, where moth and rust doeth corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal." 401ks, putting your money in these accounts and whatnot, just for them to turn around and say that they got an outstanding bill that they have to pay to private individuals, very wealthy private individuals, and then they turn around and confiscate your money before you make a bank run on it like they did in the, the Great Depression. They've learned their lessons. From over 80 years ago, they've learned their lessons. They'll just take your money. Matthew 6:19, "Lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth." You shouldn't even be worried about it. You should be just concerned with your daily bread. The fact that the Lord has allowed you to wake up day by day and has provided you with a job that you can sustain yourself, you and your family, a roof over your head, clothes on your back, and food in your mouth. That entails should be sufficient enough. But like the man said, this society, the Western society, whole mindset is about money. To go to school, to get an education, so that they can figure out how to make money. That's you laying up your treasures here upon earth. It says again, let me keep reading. Lay lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, where moth and rust do corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust do it corrupt, and where thieves do not break through and steal. You know, keeping the law, statutes, commandments, putting your faith in the Most High Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua, breaking away from the system of the world, the system of things, and putting your trust in the Lord. Not making money your end-all, be-all, and chasing after it. That way you be imbalanced in your service to your power. You find yourself more intrinsic after chasing a bag or a fancy house, a fancy car, or to dress and fashion yourself in such a way that you look somewhat important to the world that's looking at you. That's vain. Your treasure should be these laws, statutes, and commandments, the faith, the grace that the Lord has gifted you. Lord willing, He's gifted that to you, give you the understanding that that's where your treasures are, dealing with the Lord and trusting in Him. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust doeth corrupt, and where thieves do not break through nor steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. That's where your mind gonna be. If your mind set on your 401k, your retirement, vacationing, trying to, the things, the cares of this world. That's where your heart is at. Your treasures is locked in on the carnal things and not the spiritual things. Verse 22, it says, now I'm going to jump right on down to 24 real quick. And it says, no man can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to one and despise the other. Ye cannot serve Yahweh and Mammon. You can't serve the Most High and money. If money is your master, that's your God. That's your God. Just paraphrasing, Yahweh Shai say, render on to Caesar what's due to Caesar, and render on to the Most High. The Heavenly Father Yahweh was rendered on to Him. And that's where your mindset should be, because all of this place, America, it's finished. It's finished. It's a wrap for this place. It is what it is. Let me real quick. Let me get another one here. James 5. This is James 5, and I'm going to start at the top, and it reads, go to now, ye rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you. Your riches are corrupt, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver is cankered, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you, and shall eat your flesh as it were fire. Ye have heaped treasures together for the last days. Ye have heaped treasures together for the last days. And in the end, they're going to have to pay all that back in reparations to the Lord's people. All that gold, silver, and things that they've hidden in the catacombs and the tunnels and the burial places of the planet, in their so-called sacred places and whatnot. The transferred wealth will be evident in the day of the Lord returning. So, you shouldn't be hunting for these things on this side, because in order for you to receive these things, you have to give something to get something. And dealing with the men that rule this particular age, this particular era, they are very, very, very wicked. And the things that you have to do to acquire some type of wealth, some type of status, it's not even worth it, It's not even worth it. It's not even worth it. I'll grab one more. I didn't want to make this too long because the video was long itself, So I didn't want to go too long in this. Let me see. Matter of fact, let me see. Jeremiah. I was reading this the other day. I might close out with this. This is Jeremiah 51. I'm gonna start at the top and it reads, "Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, behold, I will raise up against Babylon and against them that dwell in the midst of them that rise up against me a destroying wind." Well, we already know what that destroying wind is going to be. Those ICBMs, you know. And this place, Babylon, this is Babylon the Great over here. We're speaking particularly about America, a.k.a. America. And it reads, verse 2, "And I will send unto Babylon fanners that shall fan her and shall empty her land. For in the day of trouble they shall be against her round about." And since the United States is the brainchild of this flipping your money from gold to nothing, being backed by nothing, you see all the other countries are trying to get off board with that. China, Russia, although they're being backed by very wealthy private individuals as well. You know, the same individuals that fund the Western world are the ones that are funding this third world's war. You know, they're all the big players, the hidden hand, as they like to say, you know. But, you know, it's showing the frustration of the other countries is showing forth. So everybody's trying to jump ship and come up with their own currency and bag it with gold and silver. And the United States don't want that because in the end, the United States is about to have to show her hand, showing that this money over here that the American public, by and large, believe in and is propping up is dead. It's been dead at the footsteps on for the past 50, 60 years. You've seen that clip where Nixon said that he was temporarily suspending it. Well, that temporarily didn't last over 50 years. So, you know. Anyway, let me jump down here. I'm finna close out with these last two scriptures. Let's see. Where was it? It was you know what? I'm gonna start at verse 55, and it reads, jumping down to 55, and it reads, "Because the Lord Yahweh had spoiled Babylon and destroyed out of her the great voice, when her waves do roar like great waters, a noise of their voices is uttered, because the spoiler is come upon her, even upon Babylon, and her mighty men are taken, every one of their bows is broken. For the Lord Yahweh power of recompense shall surely requite. And I will make drunk her princes and her wise men, her captains and her rulers and her mighty men, and they shall sleep a perpetual sleep and not wake, said the King, whose name is the Lord Yahweh of hosts." The Lord finna take a large number 2 pencil and erase this place. All traces of it. Verse 58, and it reads, "Thus saith the Lord Yahweh of hosts, the broad walls of Babylon shall be utterly broken, and her high gates shall be burned with fire. And the people shall labor in vain, and the folk in the fire, and they shall be weary." And the waters that surround this place, you know what I'm saying, they can be considered like walls because it's so far from any other country, you know what I'm saying, being what they call a new world. All of that, those missiles that can travel over 5,600 miles, they can reach middle America from Moscow. So that wall, that barrier, you know, as they call it, coming across the pond, the Atlantic or the Pacific, It's no longer something that's unachievable. They have the technology to make them damn things come over here and strike where they want to strike within 10 or 15 feet. And when you're talking about that type of firepower, it don't have to pinpoint when it's going to destroy a whole city. Anyway, it reads, verse 59, the word which Jeremiah the prophet commanded Seraiah, the son of Neriah, the son of Manasseh, when he went to Zedekiah, the king of Judah, into Babylon in the 4th year of his reign. And this Seraiah was a quiet prince. So Jeremiah wrote in a book all the evil that should come upon Babylon, even all these words that are written against Babylon. And Jeremiah said unto Seraiah, when thou comest to Babylon, and shalt see and shall read all these words, then shall thou say, O Lord Yahweh, thou hast spoken against this place, to cut it off, that none shall remain in it, neither man nor beast, but it shall be desolate forever. And that's talking about this place. Because if you go over there to the Middle East now, it's modern day Iraq, Iraq. If you go back into history, that was ancient day Babylon. So it's talking about this place today. And it shall be, when thou hast made an end of reading this book, that thou shalt bind a stone to it and cast it into the midst of the Euphrates. And if you look at prophecy now, that Euphrates River is drying up so that those armies from the east can push in, where the Lord can gather all the armies of the world and judge their asses. And thou shalt say, thus shall Babylon stink, and shall not rise from the evil that I will bring upon her, and they shall be weary. Thus far are the words of Jeremiah. So when this place get peppered, it's a wrap. Hey, Lord willing, it was edifying to feed sheep of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai. I want to give double honors to the apostle elders, great millstone, Shalom.